Good good afternoon, and make sure you hit the share button, and make sure you hit the share button, and don't hesitate. Let's hit the share button. My name is Funton Daniel. I will be speaking live here in the great state of Texas. As you hear the title of the message, hit the share button. If you just join live, please hit the button, subscribe, provide all the necessary support that you can do. Hit the share button, provide the support that you can at your level. Whatever you can do to support this is vital for the continuation of this broadcast. And I appreciate you. Don't hesitate. Hit the share button. Make sure you hit the share button and keep the momentum moving. If you join me, could you please indicate below where you are joining me live? And I really appreciate you. And don't hesitate to hit the share button. That's the key. So the key topic of this discussion that you may understand is about South Africa. And that will be the topic of this agenda, South Africa. So I will be talking about South Africa and including Tunisia, Tunis. So there are two major areas of this focused discussion, South Africa and Tunis. So please don't hesitate to support. Hit the share button, support the means you can to keep the momentum going. So it's going to be a very enjoyable discussion today. And I appreciate you. Queen is just say hello, Queen. And who else getting invited? All right, keep on. Don't just hit the share button. It's gonna be a most amazing discussion. So please just hit the share button. Hit the share button. Oya has just joined. If I pronounce your name wrong, please, I apologize. That's not my intent to pronounce your name wrong. But however, I appreciate. Make sure the superstar, the button, hit all. Do me one favor. Hit the share button, hit the like button, hit the follow button. So before we end this discussion, I need to hit very high number and provide any support that you have within your level, within your means, and keep this momentum moving. And I really, really appreciate you. Again, my name is Fonton Daniel. I will be broadcast live here in the great state of Texas, here in the amazing United States. And if you are, just hit the share button. Don't hesitate. Just hit the share button and hit the like. Whatever you can within your power, you can do something. And I really appreciate all of you. So the conversation will kick in, but make sure that you hit the share button and that I am your host. So don't hesitate. Make sure you press the hit button and you join live, and it seems like everybody just gets stagnated. What's going on? Please just hit the share button and also provide some necessary support that you can. So there is going to be key topic of discussion, as you may have heard. Nicodemus. Nicodemus is the key. Nicodemus. One think of Bible broadcast when you talk about Nicodemus, but it's gonna be Nicodemus of South Africa, and this has to do with the voting that is ongoing, or the result that has or is just ended in South Africa. And I'm going to touch briefly and on Tunisia. So it's about, so I really appreciate you. Thank you, Young, for joining in and hello. And so if you just join in, make sure you hit the like button, hit the share button, and do whatever it takes to keep the momentum going. And Oya just join in. Is it OYA? Oh yeah, okay. And please just share the invitation to friends, to whoever you have, anybody that is on, just hit the share button. And I encourage you to do that. And I really appreciate and thank you for joining me live for this amazing discussion. And so, let me see. Are you hitting the share button? Hello? Uh, It seems we just stuck and nothing is moving. What is going on? And we have, so please just hit the share button. And this one thing, let me keep touching the brief point. The one important thing that I want to talk about is the just ended South Africa elections result, and it is quite amazing, how the people of South Africa has spoken, and the final result has not been completed, but sooner or later the result would be announced. But there is a prime indications that the leading ANC party is about to lose its majority. And that brings to the name Nicodemus. And I know if you are a Christian, you will understand who is Nicodemus. And Nicodemus has been one of the great followers of Jesus Christ. And so the way it relates to what I am about to be talk about is relate to South Africa just ended election result. One thing for sure is we don't want to go back to the era of apartheid in South Africa. We were young when we learned about the ongoing that was happening in South Africa. And so it was an amazing grace that leaders of the free world fought for the collapse of apartheid in South Africa. It was an amazing experience seeing what was happening. When you get up early in the morning, you want to look to see how many people have been killed. So apartheid was a minority system of government that were being monopolized. And so because of it, it became a chaotic when certain racial minority were slaughtering different ethnic majority. And so you can understand Nelson Mandela, whom you all are aware of. Nelson Mandela, he was sentenced to he was in prison for 27 years. And when Nelson Mandela came out of prison, seeing a collapse of the apartheid regime and the new rejuvenated system of government, which began with Nelson Mandela, became the president of South Africa. It was amazing to see the collapse of apartheid and the return of the rule of law and the return of South Africans back into the government. And so, but why this message will be rolling, please don't hesitate to hit the share button and don't hesitate to provide any necessary support that you can provide to me. And I really appreciate you and also don't remember to hit the share button and don't hesitate to be one of my followers. So that is why today's message that I'm going to be broadcast is important. Now, let's look at when Nelson Mandela took over power, he showed the love, and the world was so amazed by his dedication, his resilience, and his tune. He said, because I have become the president, he forgive everyone, and he forgive everyone. He did not sentence anyone to prison. Say, he just resonate, just like Jesus Christ. He says he free everyone. Say, my 27 years become a freedom for all Africans. It doesn't matter whether you're white, you're black, you whatever in South Africa. My liberation and become a president of South Africa is the freedom of all. But the most people being affected were the black Africans in South Africa. And I remember when the current US president spoke very bitterly. By then he was a member, he was the US Senate representative. He spoke very bitterly. President Biden spoke bitterly on the apartheid regime in South Africa. And he was speaking directly to the US Secretary of State, who wasn't taking good actions to support the South Africans. And I'm sure he was amazed when he saw the collapse of the apartheid regime. And he is currently the US President of the United States. But has the leadership bring any change to the Africans? Unfortunately, I will disagree that the change that Africans were expected, the only change that we can acknowledge that has brought in South Africa was the massive killing that was ongoing each day, when the police force were brutalizing, shooting, killing indiscriminately. And that has bring it down to 0%. And that killing, massive execution in South Africa has slowed down to the basic fundamental level one can describe as there's no more killing in South Africa. But what has not changed in South Africa is the economic freedom. The economic freedom that brings the relief for the people. One will expect that the leadership, having an African at the helm of the government of South Africa, will bring a most prosperous for the various Africans. Jacob Zuma, who was forced to step down by Ramaphosa, Cyril Ramaphosa. So Jacob Zuma, that was forced to step down because of corrupt system of government that exists in South Africa. Jacob Zuma basically allows South Africa to be run by his family group. This is a government that represents the aspiration of the people of South Africa. This is a government that was expected to bring a significant change to the life of the people of South Africans, mostly the blacks. But unfortunately, Jacob Zuma was stationed somewhere and allowed his family group to basically run the government of South Africa. And so he wasn't. His strongest critic of Jacob Zuma was Cyril Ramaphosa. And that is why you see I call him Nicodemus. Nicodemus was a powerful member of the support of the Jesus Christ. In the days of Jesus' crucifixion, they were looking upon Nicodemus, the strong supporter of Jesus, and the person who could bring freedom. And that is why when you see Cyril Ramaphosa, Cyril is a Greek name, means Lord. Cyril, in his name, etymology of his name, it means Master Lord, Master Lord. So Master Lord, and that is Ramaphosa. He saw the disgruntledness, basically Jacob Zuma allowed the government of South Africa basically run by his own anchor, his family members, rather than the government of South Africa, rather than the people of South Africa. It was disgusting seeing this. Unfortunately, he takes over from Jacob Zuma, like someone who is coming like a freedom fighter to fight and to continue the powerful message of Nelson Mandela. And that's why I wrote in one of my pieces that if Nelson Mandela comes back today, let's say if Nelson Mandela resonates from the grave or from the coven and comes back and see the government that he left behind, I felt that it was a great disappointing, because Cyril Ramaphosa, that is the downfall for the ANC that one will expect that it was going to resonate with the people of South Africa, provide the opportunity for the people of South Africa. And so he hasn't delivered that message. Cyril Ramaphosa has not delivered that message. And that vote that went down today and tomorrow since the 29th has shown how frustrated the people of South Africa are, seeing that the person whom they believe was going to liberate and bring the powerful economic prosperity, for the people of South Africa, and they see him has not delivered the message. He has not delivered the message. Cyril Ramaphosa, the Master Lord, according to the Greek God, Cyril was the Master Lord. That is what the South Africans were looking upon, for him to deliver the message. But unfortunately, he hasn't. So he has the power. He has the government. He controls the member of parliament. But the government of South Africa has not delivered what the people that will bring the life of the common person in South Africa. And that is why the vote that has shown his collapse of his parliament, of his government, that South Africa is deeply divided, because the people has not benefiting from Nicodemus Ramaphosa. I know when people hear me calling Nicodemus, one thing that is his name. His name is Cyril Ramaphosa, but Nicodemus is a nickname I have just delivered to him, Nicodemus Ramaphosa. So his name is not Nicodemus, his name is Cyril Ramaphosa. So, but I just put him a nickname, Nicodemus, because Nicodemus has something to do in the days of Jesus Christ. Before I proceed on this topic of discussion, I want to take a dive to Tunisia. It is very sad that we Africans, it doesn't matter of the melanin that we have. It doesn't matter the melanin that we have. We belong to a unique environment, the African continent. It doesn't matter whether there are 52 or 50 something African countries. We belong to one continent, and that is Africa. It doesn't matter whether you are white in North Africa or Arab. It is a collective endeavor that when you see an African, you show sense of mercy, sense of grace, sense of love. And that is what has not bring any fundamental goodness for Africans as a whole. And that is why I talk about Tunis. Why did I single out Tunisia? And that is why if you are a Tunisian here, you need to share this message to the Tunisians, that what the government did is disgusting. The most richest person in Nigeria, the richest person among the richest person in Africa, who is Nigerian. He stated while visiting, if I'm not mistakenly, Luanda, and he was speaking with a Luandan president, including other dignitaries. He mentioned something very strategically important. He says, as a business person, I have an obligation to my businesses, and I have so many ambitious things that I need to invest in Africa. This is a Nigerian business magnate speaking. And before he traveled to Africa, he needs at least almost 50 visas to travel to carry on his businesses in Africa. But unfortunately, the time he spent visiting every embassy in order to obtain a visa is disgusting. Let's take, for example, once you get a visa to the European country, you are obliged to travel to any European country. Let's say if you landed in France and you have a European visa, you can go to Belgium, you can go to Germany, you can go to Luxembourg, you can go to Great Britain, you can travel all those various countries that make up the European Union. You are free to travel there so long as at the point of entry you have a visa to the European Union. But unfortunately, we don't have that luxury. We don't have that luxury in Africa. So if you travel in every little country in Africa, you got to have a visa to various place destinations. So it becomes a bothersome to be able to make, let's say if you are a business person and on a business trip, you are bound by this restriction that you can't even travel elsewhere. You can't carry on your business. You spend time on visas requirement. In the end, you spend, if you calculate that number of time and place and put it into monetary value, you see how wastage of money is being. So Africans need to rise and change their mentality and change their behavior and change to a new different collective bargaining that will allow freedom of movement. Because what happened when the Tunisia deliberately, intentionally burnt Africans alive, burned them, roast them in Tunisia, they're basically on a transit. Their intention, their goal, their objectives was not to stay in Tunisia. They're simply a passenger trespassing, and they are Africans. One will think that the Europeans will be more aggressively against the immigrants and burn them. But unfortunately, African country in Africa aggressively, and that is Tunisia, roast. I couldn't share the images or the video because the account was simply blocked out because they think it's against their goal of objectives. But it is sad to watch the images coming from Tunisia. And that is why I prefer, if you just join in and you are from Africa, wherever you are, please share this message and let this message go particularly to Tunis and every African country to watch that video, that images of black Africans who were just simply trespassing into Tunisia and were disgruntledly burned by the military of the Tunisian regime. It is sad to watch. How can we, despite the economic potential of Africa, yet we become an animals within the African continent? That if individual cannot even respect that this person is an African. He is in African continent. I saw the Nigerians that were burned in South Africa. I saw the Nigerians that were roasted in South Africa. So if Africans are being treated elsewhere, let's say in China, you saw what happens when an African was placed in a wandering machine and he came out white. That was displayed in the form of a movie. But that showed how it is. But if they can do that in China, when the Chinese take an African guy, young boy, and place in a laundry machine, and he came out, become a white, that was a scenario to bring attention to the understanding how frustrated Africans look like when they are in a foreign country. But that was a movie, that was a reality. But it portrays certain significant consequences that when you have this melanin, you are going to be disregarded, irrespective. But it shouldn't happen within the context in African continent. And that comes to the key message. When does we go from here? There should be some form of a universal declaration that allowed Africans, if you are trespassing, you must have some level of freedom. And let me go back to the point of the richest businessman in Africa, who is basically in Nigeria. He said that he needed 200 and something passport visas to be signed so that he can travel with his businesses. So he spent more time on visa requirement within Africa. And he quote another example because there was another representative at that particular meeting that were being presided over by Rwandan president. He asked that representative, he happened to be from Europeans. He said, Europeans coming to Africa can just get a single visa and travel the rest of African continent without being restricted. But meanwhile, him, that is an African residing in Africa, has difficulty traveling because of visa restriction and requirement. So where does African go from here? And I look at one Nigerian. This case now pertains to Nigeria. This case pertaining to Nigeria. This guy or lady, is not a guy anyway, but it's a lady. He returned from foreign country. He is with the Nigerian immigration. He have a Nigerian passport. The fact that the passport expire, but it represents a significant symbol. It doesn't matter whether it is expire or not. It shows her images, an effigy of the person. But what doesn't show is whether it has a valid. But he presented it with the Nigerian Immigration Authority. And she was asked to go back and have it regularized. Could you imagine how frustrated a Nigerian lady in Nigeria, in the face of a Nigerian, the country that she was born, she belongs to Nigeria. And now they're asking her to leave and return and get the visa, get the passport renewed. It was simply welcome her, that welcome back home. I understand that your passport has expired, but you need to step out and go and make sure that they renew your passport. Welcome home. That should have been a welcoming statement from the Nigerian authority that this person is not a white person, it's a black Nigerian that is physically in Nigeria, and that is presenting a document The difference is that the date has expired, but the images belongs to the lady. His effigy belongs to the lady. The document belongs to Nigerian government. The only difference is the expiration date. It is common. Let's say if it was a French citizen or a Belgian citizen or a Chinese that was physically there having an expired passport, and you asking them to return back to their country and get it regularized, that is a significant difference. But a Nigerian that is physically in Nigeria at the port custom authority, immigration authority, and you are asking her, because it's her in that case, to take it back and get it regularized. It is very bizarre, but it's sad. And that is why when we have leaders that have grown, that are old, like the current what we have in Nigeria as a president, who can even process information, because we believe in this assumption that when someone is somewhere above age, therefore that person is more mature to rule. We need to give up this assumption. We Africans, we need to give up this assumption that it's not the age. The younger if people have outlived their age, let them rest and allow the younger generation to manage the economy. It is vital. It is essential. It is essential. It is essential. Because let's take this lady. As I indicated before, that if this was a Chinese person or a Belgian or a France or a Germany or a Japanese in immigration authority or the airport in Nigeria having an expired document, it is a prerogative to ask that person, go back to your country of origin and renew your document so that will allow you to stay here, because we cannot renew because you are not physically a citizen of Nigeria. But a Nigerian having a passport that belongs to the Nigerian government and therefore refusing to recognize it is simply expiration date. That's what is lacking, the date that the document expires. She may have overstayed her visit, but it is the prerogative to recognize her presence and say, welcome home. But make sure that you get your document to regularize, to allow here in Nigeria, because she's having a Nigerian passport. It's not that she's having a foreign passport. She's having Nigerian passport in Nigeria. And so that is why I bring this point to point out. It is sad, but it is a reality. It is sad, but it is a reality. How can we change the perceptions, change the mentality, change the behavior, and recognize the presence of someone? Now, let's go back to South Africa. Our original stories, I talk about the apartheid regime. The collapse of apartheid, one will expect that the collapse of apartheid will bring a significant boost because there will be a change of economic leadership, and that the leadership now becomes an Africans. The only significant difference about the apartheid collapse is there's no more killing. Because I remember when I get up, I just need to tune the radio. BBC, in those days, we don't have this fancy network system that we have now. What we had was the BBC, VOA. Those were the media that I tune in frequently to listen to. My first is South Africa, to learn how many people had been killed in South Africa, because Nelson Mandela was in prison. And that you have the minority that were ruling in South Africa. So each morning I have to tune to get the latest number of people that have been killed in South Africa. And so sometimes it's sad, but that is true. You will listen, they say about these people has been killed. Dogs, the German Shepherd were allowed to bite human, beating human. The German Shepherd in South Africa were beating human like animals. It was a terrific and frightening moment watching and seeing what is happening in South Africa. Now that you have the power, what have you shown to the people? We understand that there has been a decline in the level of killing in South Africa as compared to the present moment. But what hasn't changed is the economic opportunity. Economic opportunity. How can you make that economic opportunity for every South Africans? Is to provide an opportunity, an open government, allocation of resources to everyone. But it should be transparent. It shouldn't be diverted to a particular family member or group and make a particular member become so super rich while the rest remain poor. And how can the economic bring for opportunity for every South Africans is an investment infrastructure. Investment infrastructure provide an opportunity, not just for every South African, but for every member of the South African as a whole. First, Cyril Nicodemus Ramaphosa. Cyril Nicodemus Ramaphosa have every power. He controlled the parliament. He controlled the parliament majority. He has absolute member in parliament. So what can he do is to make sure that resources allocation are exclusively for everyone that has that opportunity, not just for his personal family members. Of course, he took up leadership. He took up leadership from a corrupted system. That was Jacob Zuma. He brought the policy to revamp the economic system. He proposed a revamped economic system for the entire South Africans. But unfortunately, that did not happen. He did not provide that opportunity. He diverted certain individuals to govern. And he completely removed his supervision power and allowed each individuals become the icon and divert it to individuals. And that is why the voting in South Africa just demonstrate that victory, that the people still have the voice and that the people still have a power. The people still have the power. The people still have the power. Now, the result is out. What lesson have you learned? And what lesson has South African in general learned? That the voice, that the platform, the enterprise that Nelson Mandela left 30 years ago is still not benefit the entire people of South Africa. And so, in my conclusion, I will conclude that there should be a dynamic policy to look at the global Africa for the interest of all. There is generally economic disadvantage that has not benefited every people. So, hello, how can I help you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great, doing fantastic.
Yeah.
Where are you tuning? Where are you joining me live from? Hello?
Hello.
Yes, are you hearing me? Hello?
Hello. Yeah.
Can, yes, can you hear me?
Uh, no English.
Uh, Nada? Where are you where are you speaking from? Which country are you from?
No English. No.
Oh, no English. Okay. But anyway, thank you for joining me live. So I was speaking about the ongoing political change in South Africa that benefit everyone in the society. So maybe after this, you can be able to get someone that can be able to interpret this message, and that will be helpful. So I was talking about the recent elections that just took place in South Africa. And so, what I am saying is that despite the fact that Nelson Mandela was released from prison, his philosophy and his economic potential and the benefit has not benefited. And so, this election that just happened here in South Africa is like a referendum to the
Okay.
ANC. It's a referendum to the ANC leaders that Africans has not benefit for the economic opportunity and the leadership that they hope they have instilled. And so there is difficulty in the government system as we speak now because the new system will have to work in collaborations with whoever they form an alliance with. And so that gives a clear warning to the South African government that though the collapse of apartheid and though there have been a decline in a massive killing in South Africa, but economic opportunity has not resonated within the African context as a whole. And so this victory, or this is a victory to the ANC, indicate that they have failed the people of South Africa. And I also talked about Tunisia. And Tunisia, it is very sad to see in Tunisia that many Africans that were just simply transit, they were simply transit through Tunis. They were not in their goal and their intention were not to stay in Tunis. But unfortunately, they were burned by the government officials of the Tunisian government. And that is really sad to watch the images coming there. I didn't have the opportunity to share the images here because it will go into question and saying that there is very sad. But unfortunately, it is devastating watching an African in African continent trespassing inside another African continent and they're being brutalized by a government that is still an African. Imagine that behavior was happening. Let's say it was happening in Japan or it was happening in South Korea. That African are being burnt or in China or in Europe or in Belgium. But unfortunately, it's not happening there. It's happening within African, where African burn the African. Simply, they just trespass. They have no crime. There should be freedom to trespass within any African country. An African should have that freedom. And I talk about one rich Nigerian that was meeting the Rwandan president, and he cited an issue of visa restriction that he cannot just migrate within Africa as a whole, but he will have a restriction. He can't just migrate. But meanwhile, he cited a case of someone from Europe that came to and he could have the freedom to navigate through Africa. He doesn't require a visa. And so this is an opportunity that I'm bringing expose this agony that is existing even within the context of Africa. And let's take, for example, the OAU, the Organization for African Unity. It is a sad that this structure or this organization, Africa doesn't see the impact they have from the leadership of the Organization of African Unity. It doesn't. It doesn't speak on behalf of Africa. It doesn't represent the interests of Africa. It doesn't show the love for Africa. Its purpose has insignificance to the African as a whole. It has zero significance to the Africans, the Organization for African Unity. And that is why I am bringing this message to resonate. And I'm sure if you are watching, make sure you share the message so that they should understand that we, as an observer, we understood that how can we make Africa a better place for the Africans? Why should Africa become a slave inside the African continent? It is sad, but unfortunately, that's a reality. It's a reality. It's a reality that Africa become a slave. In the advent of the 21st century, in the advent of the 21st century, one will expect a significant change, but unfortunately, it hasn't. And so Africa must show very comprehensive leadership. So I want to take a moment to thank all of you for watching. And so if you happen to be here, make sure you share to every single single government and every part of the world. Make sure this message resonate and be shared so that it's the only way. Because if we have to speak up, we have to speak up. If we don't speak up, we are going to remain in a very disaster moment. We have to. So Africans need to rise up. Africans need to speak up. Africans need to join the movement, the momentum. They need to join the momentum. When you look, now let's look at Cameroon in particular. You have somebody that have outlived the entire generation. Paul Biya of Cameroon, I know the major topic that I have been talking about was about South Africa, Nigeria, and Tunisia. Now let's look at Cameroon. Cameroon has a president that is 90-something years old. He has been in power since when, he became a prime minister in 1975. When I was probably 3 years old, he was prime minister, 1975. That's Paul Biya. Prior to that, he was a secretary general at the presidency. So I don't know when he became a secretary general at the presidency. But in 1975, for accuracy, he became the prime minister. In 1982, he assumed the presidency of the Republic of Cameroon. He has been in power till the present moment as I'm speaking. So it's been 40-something years that he has been in power as the president of the Republic of Cameroon. Imagine how deeply the military are just protecting him, undermine the integrity of that country. Basically, the economic is simply in a sham and disaster. The economic of the Republic of Cameroon is a sham and disaster. French President Emmanuel Macron, he became president when Paul Biya assumed the presidency. He was 2 years old, and French President Emmanuel Macron. Why would French president support a brutal regime to continue to exist at the helm of a country? The fact is clear. They say, a bird at hand worth two in the bush. A bird at hand worth two in the bush. So therefore, dealing with Paul Biya, according to the French system, is better than to have a new president. So in this case, so they support him to stay in power until he is in grave. His member of parliament with the so-called Kangaloo parliament in La République du Cameroun is a disaster. You have his members basically cannot even walk. They can't even walk. They're running, they are walking like a ghost, a dead ghost. They're walking like a dead ghost. They're walking like a dead ghost. That is what is happening in Cameroon. A dead ghost. But he's the president of a country. Basically, let's listen to who this person is. Paul Biya, at the moment as I'm speaking, he arrived in United States about, if not 1 year ago. He wasn't aware that he was in United States. He saw a demonstration in front of the hotel that he was lodging. And he began to inquire who are those, because he felt that he was in a Tudi, his palace, where he take a refuge. But unfortunately, in United States, it's different. Demonstration. And so he was sad. His memory is simply non-existent. His memory is non-existent. He can't even recall. He doesn't even remember. And that's why he's been sealed off by the so-called the CRTV, which is the media of La Republique. It's been sealed out because no one has access to him, neither to question his authority. He's been completely shut off. He can walk. From his office. He doesn't remember from his room in Etudi. Etudi, that's the presidency. He don't remember to walk to his office. He doesn't remember to walk to his office. He's simply taken from his bedroom to wherever they call his office in Etudi, and he doesn't. So the wife shield him off, and they pretend like if he's mentally stable. He's incoherent. He can't even remember his own children that he delivered. His own children whom he delivered from, he had them. He can't remember their names. So the administration in it today, his own administration, he doesn't even remember them. He can't even recall a single individual of them by their name. That's to show how mentally deprived he is. And yet you have the military just ruling over him, protecting him as though he's a president. At what point can they say, no, let's have a new administration? Of course, they said they're going to have an election in 2025. There is already a group of members within the system, the so-called the CPDM. They are already portraying him as a potential candidate. It seems these people are mentally deranged, especially the Francophones. I don't know what is wrong with them. There's something fundamentally wrong with the Francophones. Arise, let the Francophones arise and think out of the box. Who are ruling you? A mentally deranged individual called Paul Biya? I mean, let the Francophone arise, get up from slumber and speak up and tell no. Let the military arise and say no. Let's put the country first over single individuals. It will be for the goodness of Cameroon. It will be for the goodness of Cameroon that the people arise and say no for this form of regime. The essence of the military is to protect the nation, not a single individuals. Why will you be going and slaughtering people when a single individual basically has no fundamental value for the nation? Paul Biya has no fundamental value for the nation of Cameroon. He doesn't. Because he's just like a walking ghost. Paul Biya is simply a walking ghost. He cannot recall, he cannot remember, he cannot do anything, he doesn't know what is happening. But yet, you have military officials protecting him to where? To a grave? Let's look at who is called the parliament representative. It is a disaster, but a reality. Africa need a new adjustment. They need a new structure that reflect the African for the best of mankind. If someone is 90 years old, and he wants to be a president, he has outlived. Okay, why should we say the retirement age is 62? So he has lived out of his retirement age from a nursing home category to now a mentally walking ghost. And yet, you have the military just protecting him because the interest of France is a prerogative. It's time we need to get rid of France's foreign policy because the interest of Africa matters. Just imagine the economic is in a sham. The economic is in sham. People walking in the forest, water damage, everything is completely worse state. Fellow Africans, we need a significant leadership. We need a significant change. We need people with mentally function capability to lead. We need that's the categories of people we need to lead that has the ability, not this mentally challenged individuals. We don't support these categories. We don't. Let's tell them it's time to go and rest. And let's have somebody that has prerogative. And I admire Etofis, who challenged that culture. You know, Etofis challenged that culture. And I really admire him. It was very of his kind. And you saw the FIFA came out and support Etofis. That is the leadership we want. We want the younger generation to be in the power of leadership. Let's get off this mentality that the old must stay in power. And I just want to take a moment to thank all of you for watching. And make sure you subscribe. Make sure you give me a star. Make sure you be my follower. Whatever you can do, do it. Thank you so much and have a good rest of your day.